We will begin in just a moment. If you're here for the inside story, it'd be great to come to the front seats. Well, I recognize many of the faces that were at our town hall meeting now a year and a half ago when we debated, we studied, we listened. We had Father Billy Dodge come from La Crosse with campus ministry students and Focus Missionaries. We were debating, should we bring in this Focus organization or should we not? I see many of those same people here in the pews this morning. And I know they're feeling as I am. Thank God. Thank God we were touched by Father Billy Dodge and those students when Focus State Area Representatives came and took, I've forgotten his name now, came and took questions and answers, that the Spirit spoke loud and clear. I know from comments from many of you that you too are amazed at the growth in our Focus Missionaries work and in our campus ministries this past year. So I'm anxious to find out how God called these young women and men and how it is that he works so well through them. I think Isaac and Anna, newly married in January, are going to come up first. Please join me in welcoming our Focus Missionaries to the Inside Story.
Morning. Yeah, we're grateful to have the chance to speak to you all this morning. Thank you. Yeah, many of you know I'm Isaac. This is my wife, Anna. But yeah, we're here to share a little bit about each of our personal journeys to being on mission. Yeah, so a little bit of personal backstory for me. I grew up in a Catholic family. Was an altar server from like 4th grade to senior year of high school, went to church every Sunday. But my faith never influenced any other part of my social life growing up, really. It was very much compartmentalized to Sundays with the family, which is kind of what we did. And that's how my upbringing was, and especially going to college at Indiana University, had no real intention of getting involved at a Newman Center with the faith. Really just was going for a good time, really seeking out a lot of typical things that people seek out at a big state college. Yeah, and for the first year or so, I think I went to Mass maybe 5 times, and definitely went kind of leaned into those desires of going to college, having fun, doing the typical college experience. But eventually those whatever I was seeking in those things really kind of left me realizing that there was still a big void in my heart. And around the same time, I met some people at the Newman Center for the first time. Jackie was actually one of them. Yeah, I started to go to Mass a little more just to go pray, which is not something I was doing super often. But slowly, I started to be introduced to other young people who were doing something that I'd never seen any other young people do, which is practicing their Catholic faith in a very serious, vibrant, and joyful way. And in seeing that witness, it just kind of really was a pivotal point in my faith journey, because I thought that being devout Catholic was something that was a little more distant. Never really had any peers that I could really imitate in doing so. So when I finally made it to the Newman Center at college and saw that, the Lord really started to draw me in through those relationships. And it kind of just caught fire in my heart. fell in love with the Lord in prayer, in a daily prayer life, and especially in the Eucharist, which is something that still to this day blows my mind that we can encounter Christ every day right here on the altar. And this became, this just kept growing and growing in my heart and became the most important thing in my life. And it became this very treasured part of my own personal life, and I shared it with my Catholic circle at the Newman Center. And this is where another pivotal point came. With the help of the Focus Missionaries at Indiana University, I went from realizing that this treasured part of my heart, this relationship with God that I valued so much, is not just to stop there. And that love that I was experiencing, that deep relationship with the Lord that was just bringing so much fruit into my life, should be shared with other people. And for the last 2 years of college, I slowly started to realize, okay, I can actually lead a Bible study and invite people who I encounter on a daily basis to not just come to Bible study or come to church, but to invest in and to be friends with them, to show them the love of Christ just by the daily habits of being a Catholic, and loving with the heart of Jesus. And that once, I kind of went from having just that personal relationship with Christ to really desiring to share that with others and desire that same love I was feeling with others. It kind of just transformed the way that I've lived my life ever since. And really before I started mission here in Stevens Point, I worked for 1.5 years between graduation and now, just as a consultant. So I've kind of lived the student life, the fresh new grad working person life, and now the missionary life. But that desire for mission, to share Christ, has followed me wherever I'm at, to love the people that I'm surrounded by with the heart of Christ, and to stay close to Christ, and to be a source of his light to anyone in my life, whether it's a close friend or somebody I met, at the grocery store that I might have ran into a couple times. And I can confidently say my heart has been transformed in that way, and being, a son of Christ, and to share his love with other people. And it's been a blessing to be here and be able to do that with all the students. They've been great, especially, on my end, the men have just really shown me how hungry the hearts of people on campus are for spiritual food, our spiritual food in the Eucharist, and for Christ to fill their hearts. And that's just been a blessing. And I just love to be a part of building up the future of our church on a place like UW Stevens Point. And I'm just so happy to be here. And with that, I'll pass it to my wife, Anna, to kind of share more about her story as well.
Go ahead. Like Isaac said, my name is Anna. I was born and raised in a suburb of Indianapolis in Indiana. I'm the oldest of 4 kids, so if you know my personality type, that makes a lot of sense. I'm really type A. I grew up also in a Catholic family, but again, the Catholicism never really left Sunday for us. It was very much we go to church on Sundays, we go to CCD class, but we didn't talk about anything in our family outside of that. I remember the first time that I learned that there were people that weren't Catholic, and that was when I switched from going to Catholic school to public school in 6th grade, and I knew that people that weren't Catholic existed, but I had never encountered them on a daily basis. So that was the first time I remember understanding what self-awareness was in relation to my faith. And then when I was 15, my littlest brother was born. His name is Noah. He is 7. He'll be 8 next month. And that was the first time that I remember having something outside of myself that mattered to me. I was by no means sacrificing like a parent does, in no way, shape, or form. But my family was brought together in a way that we had never been brought together before by serving this little human. Like, we were scheduling our Saturdays around who would be home for nap time, and that's not something you think about when you're 15 years old and in high school. But again, I had like never seen my family work together in that way before. And then Noah is growing up. He was 3 when I remember like him starting to ask questions. And he's asking me and my siblings, who were all teenagers at the time, about Catholicism. And we're realizing that we don't have any of the answers to give him. We don't have the why. And we're like, oh no, like we should be able to explain this to our 3-year-old brother. So I remember that being like very pivotal in my life, about being like, oh, Noah's asking these questions, but also I should be asking them in my own life. So Noah was 3 when I left to go to college at Indiana University. I wanted to study a lot. So I studied speech pathology, audiology, human development, and family studies. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with any of those things, but I knew that I wanted to be kept busy and that I wanted to care for other people. So in my idea of like keeping busy, I was not really interested in doing anything other than going to church on Sundays, because that was what I was used to. But after our first Mass that we had at St. Paul's in Bloomington, a girl named Jenna, who was Jackie's roommate in college, came up to me and asked me to join her Bible study. And at that time, she like told me the time. I think it was like Tuesday evenings or something. And I was like, I know I'm free then, so I would lie to her if I told her I wasn't. But I really don't want to go. But I was like, I'm free, so I can't lie. And I have to be able to go and actually spend time with her. And through getting to know Jenna through Bible study and discipleship, I like learned to know her well. But it was actually in our friendship that I really was transformed to know Jesus the most. Jenna was not a Focus missionary. She was just a fellow student like I am, and she was discipled by a Focus missionary. And through our relationship, Jenna consistently invited me to prayer and to Mass, but also she opened her home and Jackie's home to me over the years for 3 years. We were in college together for 3 years. And it really mirrored to me how Jesus continually opens his heart to me and invites me in, and how I can't say no. Like, when I have the opportunity, it just gave me greater space to like see how Jesus loves me. So Jenna, yes, discipled me for 3 years in college, and then she became a Focus missionary and now serves in California. But I started being discipled by another woman named Liz. And when I was going into my senior year of college, my junior year, I had the summer between my junior and senior year, I had an internship at a clinic with speech pathology. They had offered me a full-time job and to pay for all of my grad school. And so going into senior year of college, I was like, I'm set in what I'm gonna do. And obviously that's changed because I'm here. Because Liz invited me to actually pray about what Jesus wanted me to do and not what I wanted me to do. And I was aware in praying with those things that Jesus and mission is needed in a speech pathology clinic and in an audiology clinic. But I was comfortable with that. And I knew that Jesus was going to call me into something that was uncomfortable. And so I applied for Focus, I went through the hiring process, and then I eventually got an offer. Then I accepted the offer and immediately called Isaac and said, guess what? I'm going to be a Focus missionary, and our plans are kind of changing. Fast forward, we were not engaged at the time, but got engaged in about 6 months after that. We're both here now, serving on mission. And being Focus missionaries while being married has been actually one of the greatest gifts to our marriage. One of my favorite things about coming home in the evenings is turning to each other and being like, how was Bible study? Or like, how was discipleship today? And just to like hear and encounter where other students are at through our own interactions with each other. It's also been a great place of vulnerability to get married halfway through the school year, because joke's on me, I thought that marriage would be super easy from the very beginning. And it actually just magnified our faults and our arguments way more. And it's been a great place of vulnerability and sharing that with students and knowing that I don't have everything figured out, and we actually will probably never have anything figured out. And it's actually magnified the ways that I can serve Isaac better, but also serve our students better, because I'm reminded of my poverty every single day in marriage, and that is a great gift because it shows me the ways that I can grow. Figuring out how to enter into vocation with each other while working in a very relational ministry has been super stretching for both of us who are introverts. But it's also our greatest blessing from God, because the Lord would have called us to be on mission whether or not we were working with Focus or not. Our marriage has the capacity to serve other people and to bring life into the world through not just the way we love each other, but also in the ways that we serve others. Right now, Jesus has called us specifically to be on mission with Focus, and that is wonderful, but it's also preparing us so well to enter into lifelong mission wherever we end up. It's been a pleasure to know that I'm going to fulfill the Great Commission in whatever I do and in our marriage, but that Focus and working with our students here has prepped us so well to be able to love others well in the future. And with that, I will pass it off to Tessa, who's going to give a little bit more about her story.
Hello, I'm Tessa, as they said. I grew up in Duluth, Minnesota, so I'm not from Indiana like the rest of my team. And I went to school at the Minnesota State University of Mankato. I grew up in 2 different households since my parents divorced when I was young. I did not grow up Christian or going to church on Sundays, but there was a specific moment in high school when God showed up for me, and I didn't really know how to make sense of it until I was in college. It was a moment in a time in my life where I was in an empty place, and I very clearly remember hearing the words, "You were not made for this." They were spoken over me, and they truly pierced my heart and stayed there, and I couldn't ignore them. After that, I made a series of decisions to break off a relationship I was in, think about what I wanted with my life, and chose a college to attend for a degree in nursing. I like to jokingly tell people that my life changed because of a piece of paper and eventually some bread as well. But really, I met my friend Jackie, not my teammate, who was a student under a missionary. She was discipled by a Focus missionary, because I wrote my name and number down on a piece of paper being interested in Bible study. And as simple as I can put it, she showed up for me, and that was what I needed. She also was a convert, which helped, and she made invitations for me that I said yes to come to the Newman Center, get involved, come to Bible study, and get to know people in the community. We had discussions where she was explaining to me that I was made for more, that I was made for love, that I was made for a relationship, and that I was made for sainthood. It was then that I finally understood those words that were still on my heart from 2 years before. She invited me to Eucharistic adoration, and this is where I really became convicted of Jesus in the Eucharist, that he was sitting there with me, and I didn't want to be without that ever. I would go to adoration, and I sat with the one who spoke those first words to me for 3 to 4 days a week for an hour, just because she asked me to, and she came with me. And I heard new words come to me. So I entered the church on Divine Mercy Sunday, which is why this feast day is so special to me. That same year, so my freshman year of college. As I grew in the community, I became heavily involved with student leadership. I started leading a Bible study, leading discipleship, and there was always talk of being a missionary around the community. Although my nursing education was actually what helped me to recognize my desire to bring others to Christ. I was in my summer nursing internship in Minneapolis, and there was one evening where I was getting patients to bed, and one woman in particular, let's just call her Anne, even though that wasn't her name, was chatting with me, and I was helping her to get ready. She was in bed when she asked me if I could sit down with her. I did, and she proceeded to thank me for taking care of her, because her brother had recently committed suicide, and she was mostly estranged to her family. She felt very alone, and she was in the hospital. I found that I was a bit afraid to sit with her in her vulnerability. After Anne told me these things, all I felt I could do was tell her she was loved and that I would pray for her. I wanted to do much more for her, and this continued to happen throughout my internship, where I felt I had a disconnect in serving my patients. I realized I wanted to serve them not only physically, but spiritually, and to care for them with the purpose of seeing the love that Christ has for them. With a nudge from my friend Jackie my senior year to pray about being a missionary, I went to interview with Focus just to give it a shot. I didn't think I'd actually do it. I ended up obviously saying yes when they gave me an offer to the job because I really wanted to know Christ deeper, and that is the bottom line of it. And to be able to be a vessel for him in this world. I knew that other women I knew at my university didn't know their daughterhood or the treasure that they were to Christ. And that realization for me is what I wanted to share with them. I wanted young women like me to know that when they hear the word beloved, that they believe and know that it is for them, and that it comes from their Father who knows them. In the end, I knew I couldn't give what I didn't have, and that God would always give back the time I gave to him. Rather, I knew he would bless it. So that's why I made a commitment to serve him radically for these 2 years or more, who knows, with Focus here at Stevens Point. And with that, I will invite Jackie up to talk more.
Great. Thanks, Tessa. So yes, my name is Jackie. I am the third of our teammates from Indiana. I grew up in Bloomington, Indiana, which is where Indiana University is, so a townie, as they say. And I grew up in a family where, my dad is not Catholic or Christian. My mom is baptized Catholic, but we weren't a particularly practicing family. But my grandma really wanted my sister and I to attend Catholic school, so she paid for us to attend Catholic school for kindergarten through 8th grade, and that is how we stayed connected to the Catholic Church, because our parish community was also our school community, and so we weren't necessarily the kind of family who prayed before bed or prayed before meals or necessarily had Bibles or crucifixes in the home, but we would try to go to Mass some Sundays because that's where our community was, and we got to learn about the faith in school because that's where our grandma really wanted us to be. And I liked learning about the faith because I was the kind of kid who also liked to learn about math and liked to learn about history, so I also liked to learn about the faith. And so I also like to learn about the faith. But there is this difference between learning about the faith and learning about the Lord. And the first person who really taught that to me was when we got a youth minister my 8th grade year. And her name is Ashley. And she came in my 8th grade year, and the greatest way that I can describe her is this person who, she just has something that you want, right? Like whatever that is, you're like, sign me up, right? Just that kind of contagious joy that you're like, whatever that is, like that is what I want. And so she came in that 8th grade year, and she's the first person in my life to talk about the difference between knowing about Jesus and like knowing about God and having a relationship with him. And so she would talk about this. So I knew that there was a difference, but I still didn't necessarily know how to bridge that gap or like how to live out that relationship. But there was something about her and something about that relationship that I knew that I wanted. And so as I transitioned into public high school, we started a youth ministry program at my parish. And so I knew that I had somewhere to keep coming back to. I had a community that I wanted to keep coming back to. I had a place to keep learning. So high school was, a weird time in my faith life because I wasn't able to really practice the faith. I wasn't able to drive myself to Mass anymore. I didn't have a car yet. I wasn't able to do that, but I kept seeking out the faith through youth group. I was able to learn a little bit more. I wanted this community. I was trying to seek it out, but I still just didn't know how to do that, even kind of through these retreats and through these conferences. But I knew that there was something there that I wanted. And I would say that a big transition point in my life was towards the end of high school. I had the opportunity to attend a mission trip with this parish to go to Uganda towards the end of this time. And it was kind of a big whirlwind of a moment. It was the end of March. A couple other people had dropped the trip, so there was a female spot open, and the trip left June 1st, and it was at the beginning of Mass. They told me that this spot was open, and by the end of Mass, I was like, well, I think I'm going to Uganda. I told my mom afterwards, and I was like, I'll do what I have to do. I'll fundraise. I'll pay with it with my coaching money. I'm gonna go and talk to the priest. And yeah, it was such a beautiful trip for so many reasons, and I'm not gonna go into all of them right now. You can talk to me more about it later. But yeah, firstly, because of the people that I was with, and I know that isn't the main purpose so much of a mission trip, right? It was also the people we encountered, the service work we got to do in the school and in the clinic and in the community, but the people that I was with, and actually living daily life for 2.5 weeks with people who had this relationship with the Lord, just actually seeing what relationship with the Lord looked like on a daily basis. Yeah, that changed my life, being able to just travel and witness that life of Father Tom, and going to Mass with him every day. And that youth minister who is now a religious sister, Sister Gemma, Ashley, getting to travel with her and just live life with her every day for 2.5 weeks. And a mom of one of the 2 other high school students, and one of those being Jenna, who then was, the student who I lived with in college and who was in discipleship with Anna. And just getting to see the way that these people lived out their relationship with the Lord through Mass every day, through praying, kind of teaching me how to journal, just asking even the question, where did you see God at work today? And it's no one's ever asked me that question. I actually don't even know how to look for that in my day. And just knowing, seeing their witness of life for a relationship with the Lord in their daily life. I had just never seen that lived out, and that changed my life. And so then this second part, which maybe the start of it maybe doesn't sound as life-changing, but just the witness to the way they viewed education. And I promise it's going somewhere, but when I was a kid, I had always wanted to go into education. When I was in first grade, I wanted to be a first grade teacher. Then when I was in second grade, I wanted to be a second grade teacher. And then when I was in third grade, I wanted to be a third grade teacher, and so on and so forth. But by the time I got to high school, people were just telling me, oh, you're smart. You should go be a doctor or a lawyer. What are you doing? Don't waste your time with education. That's a waste of your talents. You shouldn't go into education. And even the teachers at my school were education is terrible. Don't do this, And so at that point, I started to listen to them. And I was well, okay, I'm good at math. I'll go be an actuary, and I'll sit at a desk, and I'll do math all day. I was listening to them. But going to Uganda, in Uganda, not every kid gets to go to school. And so they view education as this gift and as this opportunity. And seeing, being a part of their school there, education is a gift. And comparing that to the way that we view education in the US, education is this inconvenience that gets in the way of us living the rest of our life. So often it's I just have to get through high school because then I can get on with the rest of my life. Or even on a college campus, it's I have to go to class, but then I'll get back to hanging out with my friends and get on with the rest of my life. And it's just this inconvenience that gets in the way of us living the rest of our lives, rather than viewing it rightly as the gift and the opportunity that it has to form us well. And so, it changed my life and reignited this passion that I have for education to want to teach others well, and also even reform the way that we view education. But it actually helped me understand that this mindset shift, it can actually change everything, and it can change the way that we view everything. Because even if we think about Mass, or if we view Mass as this inconvenience where it's yes, I guess Sunday, this inconvenient 1 hour that I have to go to, and I'll just go because I have to do this thing on 1 hour on Sunday, and then I'll get on with the rest of my life. But it's actually, we have the greatest opportunity to come and worship our Lord and actually receive the greatest gift that He's given us in Himself. That is the greatest opportunity that we have. Or if we view prayer, trying to even just take 15 minutes of daily prayer, and it's this thing that I should do, and it's this thing that I have to do, but then I'll do it and it'll be out of the way. But it's actually this opportunity that I have to be in conversation with like the maker of the universe who like cares about me personally and wants to hear about me. And so just this shift from like, yeah, these things being inconveniences that get in the way of me living the rest of my life, but instead it's like an opportunity to like participate in the greatest gifts, and like that mindset just like changes everything. And so coming back from this mission trip, a lot had changed for me. I finally knew what it looked like to live relationship with the Lord, and I was excited about being able to enter into education and also just enter into these opportunities and help other people view things as opportunities as well. And so, that was going back into senior year of high school and going into college. I ended up at Indiana University, and so I went into college already knowing that I wanted, my relationship with the Lord to be one of the things that I did, one of the important parts of my life. But I would say that going into freshman year, I still suffered from the idea that I had to do all of the things all of the time. And so I, joined 1,000 different clubs. I was coaching, I was doing school, I was trying to do all of the things. And I would say I still did it all fairly well, I was still running to a million different places, but throughout that year and being able to grow in relationship with the Lord, just also gained a lot of freedom and recognizing that, my identity doesn't actually lie in how perfect my grades are. My identity doesn't actually lie in how many friendships I have even. My identity doesn't lie in how many clubs I can put down on my resume at the end of my time in college. My identity doesn't lie in all the things that I'm doing. It actually lies in the fact that I have a relationship with God, and He is my Father, and He wants to take care of me. And so it doesn't actually matter what everyone else thinks I should be doing with my time. It just matters what God thinks of me. It actually only matters how does He want me to be spending my time? And so by the end of freshman year, I really had to decide, okay, how should I be spending my time? Because splitting my time between 20 different clubs, I can't actually invest into any of those things well. I need to pick a few things, I need to do them well. And just, came to this realization that the Lord has given me the greatest gift of relationship with Him, of the sacraments of Mass, and I want other people to experience that. And I committed to investing my time into furthering my relationship with Him and wanting other people to experience that as well. And I had already gotten there by the end of my freshman year, and into that summer had an even more profound experience with Jesus in the Eucharist. And so then by the time I came back my sophomore year, I was ready to run. I was I just want every single person I know and love to come to know and love the Lord. And then that is when Focus Missionaries arrived on the campus of Indiana University. And so I was already there, I was already ready, and then Focus came, and they were we want to teach people how to lead Bible studies, and we want to teach people how to lead others in discipleship, and we want to teach people how to teach other people how to pray and come to know and love the Lord. And I was that is all I want to do. That I am ready to do it. And so I was ready and wanting to be there, and it was still hard and required sacrifice. I actually had to say no to other good things to say yes, to make time to for these greatest things. But I knew that this is where I wanted to spend my time. And so at that point, I knew that ministry is where my time was best spent, and I wasn't for sure focus, I wasn't it is for sure focus. I was still helping with some high school youth ministry with my friend Ashley. I was helping with the middle schoolers. I was still coaching. I was doing school. I was in a couple other clubs. But I knew that as important as it is to teach people well about math, it is more important to teach people about the Lord. And it is even more important to teach people that they are made for mission, because I, Jackie Parks, cannot reach every soul on the campus of Indiana University. I, Jackie Parks, cannot reach every soul on the campus of UW-Stevens Point. I certainly cannot reach every soul in the entire world. I can't do it on my own. And Jesus didn't do it that way either. He didn't try to reach every person during His time here on earth. He actually entrusted the mission to His apostles and to His disciples. And so I'm passionate that I need to make missionary disciples, and I need to help teach people how to be on mission, and that is where my time is best spent, at least right now, to help people know that they are also made for mission, and whether that is on their college campus, and then it's going out into the parish, or it's in the workplace, but it's actually, yeah, like it is not just to be a full-time missionary that we are called to be on mission, but it's when you're students, we are also called to be on mission, missionary disciples. It's when you're parents, you are on mission to your family. Like, we need people to model that life of witness, of relationship with the Lord. In parishes, we need people to be on mission to the other parishioners. In workplaces, we need people to be on mission to the coworkers. And so it's, yeah, that example that I know that actually right now, the Lord is calling me to make disciples of all nations, particularly through Focus. And that might not be the forever gig, but it is where I'm called to right now. And the Lord continued to make that evident throughout my time in college. So very thankful that he called me to the apostolate of Focus in Oshkosh, and now at Stevens Point. I have grown in great love for the state of Wisconsin, and I'm very thankful that he has allowed me to make missionary disciples in this great state of Wisconsin. So, thank you.
May I suggest that we move to Spirit Hall and refreshments and have our Q&A in there that people can get ready for the coming Mass? Thanks so much.